Well, welcome to another episode of the Business is Mission podcast and now the Business is Mission YouTube channel. And I'm here with, I like to call Dirk my old new friend or new old friend. We've known each other or about each other forever, but we only met in person a few months ago. So, Dirk Cameron, first of all, welcome to the show and really looking
Great.
forward to this conversation.
Great to be here, and kind of a hard act to follow the Tanzanian soap maker Alex Samuel. But these are exactly the kinds of missional operators you and I and many others are trying to identify and partner with. So,
Yeah,
so great to come after Alex.
absolutely. And Alex's story is such a great one, and unfortunately, we had video problems, and so
Hmm.
the video did not record, or
Okay.
it wasn't workable. So you didn't get to see his face, but he's one of those brothers that just has this truly charismatic
Hmm.
smile, just
Yeah.
joyful, and just, of course you got it through his voice. You could tell the guy's got amazing energy, and you're right, it's a great story,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's got a great
Yeah.
business going. So, all right,
Yeah.
well, so
Yeah.
Dirk, as we mentioned before, I'm going to let you introduce
Yeah.
yourself rather than for the podcast. We'll have something in the show notes for folks, but just real quickly, who are you? When people say Dirk Cameron, and I know I've known you long
Yeah.
enough to know this is a long story.
Yeah.
You only got a minute to tell the highlights, and then we'll get into your story. What's actually going on? But who are you?
Man, I am a follower of Jesus, trying to be as dependent, as obedient to his call, and as faithful to his call. And it's been a roller coaster since 1989. But I would just say where it all started is when I came to Christ and I was discipled in the Great Commission through Crew at Texas Tech. And that was the foundation that God laid in my life. And then shortly thereafter, I had a chance to go full-time ministry, full-time accounting. My background is accounting, CPA. And the Lord made it real clear, I want you to go in business. And that was clearly the foundation for what he's done through my life over the last 40 years.
Fantastic. And guys, when
Yeah.
you hear Dirk's story and the journey, it is a fascinating story because it is on the one hand, he's always made himself available to the Lord to do with as he pleases. And
Hmm.
so when you hear the twists and the turns, we know
Hmm.
where that's coming from. But the other side of it is that you have been in business with a heart for ministry, if you can put it that way,
Yes.
a disciple maker,
Hmm.
primarily in the business context. And your journey's a fun one. So. Dirk, tell me a little bit more of where it began. The Lord led you out of
Yeah.
crusade
Yep.
ministry into
Uh-huh.
business, and where did that lead
Yep.
to?
Yep. I came out of college. I said no to a full-time offer at PricewaterhouseCoopers. I said no to Crew to go and raise support. And I went to Europe for 5 months on a summer project to Czechoslovakia with Crew. And then a buddy of mine who actually led me to Christ, we traveled Europe for 4 months, not 4 years. And it was there in Scotland. My last name's Cameron, roots in Scotland. And the Lord said, I want you to go home and go into business. And I thought, oh my, I'm a relational person. I'm going to go back and do accounting. But I was obedient and I was faithful. And fast forward because of a desire, I'm a cross-cultural business guy. I tell people in the US, I'm a 50-50 guy. Go across the border, man, I'm top 5% in business. I love other cultures. My
Hmm.
wife's from Colombia, long story there. Met through her brother. They came to Christ as international students in 1987. Met her older brother. We became roommates, met his younger sister. So at age 25, looking to do something else and quit my job at Deloitte at this time doing auditing and wife's mother's Mexican, dad's Colombian. They had to leave Colombia in the 80s because of the violence and the situation and moved to Mexico.
Hmm.
So I went down 91, learned Spanish, and we got married in 93 in Mexico. And as the Lord would have it, 6 months later, I got a job offer down in Ecuador to be a international controller for an oil trading company. Basically, the job was to be the eyes and ears for the American CFO in Houston, who didn't want to lose his job, and father and son were Ecuadorian who started this company. And so we had an incredible 4 years from 93 to 97, but it was at the end of that time when the Lord planted the seed of business as mission. Wouldn't have called it then, but I looked around and I said, okay, all the churches are turned inward, very similar to the US, but we need missional leaders in business
Hmm.
and the arts and politics. but how in the world do you do that? And so you saw the chaos, the poverty, had lots of friends, but no one was doing that. So that was the seed that was planted.
So, Dirk,
Came home and yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
curious as the Lord's beginning to show this to you, and I know it never
Yeah.
happens all at once, but
Yeah.
you're already making disciples in business. I mean, through your job,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that's who you are.
Uh-huh.
That's how
Uh-huh.
you were discipled to do that, as I was. You
Yeah.
through Crusade, me through the
Hmm.
Navigators.
Hmm. Hmm.
But when did you begin to say it's more than just being a faithful witness and a disciple maker who happens to have a job? When did you begin to see
Yeah.
it as something
I
bigger?
think I think it's when we co-founded our first business in '99. So I came back '97, went to work for a corporation, realized I'm not a corporate guy. I'm a startup small business guy. Got an MBA, and in that period, my brother owned office buildings. He was a executive with Gerald Hines and owned a couple office buildings. Was complaining about his cleaning company. And I said, that's Hispanic based. I speak Spanish. What if I started a company for you? So my brother-in-law, who was a banker, the Colombian, and I started a small cleaning company in summer of '99 in between my 2 years at Rice getting my MBAs. And we said, let's look in the technology sector. And in late '99, a friend of ours started a web development company in '92. We're convinced he
Wow.
was the first web development company in Houston.
And maybe
He
in the
worked for
world.
NASA, worked for NASA and
Yeah.
built a website for his lab. So we invested in his company, and the CPA who didn't know what he was made for. We had the tech guy. My brother-in-law is the operator, the finance and the operator. We needed a sales guy. So I became the sales guy and loved it. So that's when I began to start saying, okay, I've got my own company. We had an online hotel reservation booking engine. So that was a hot time that all of a sudden people are starting to book hotel reservations
Mm-hmm.
online. And so it was when the Lord planted that seed and said, okay, you've got your own company. I'd always thought that it made sense that if we could raise up missional business leaders, successful, $1 million in sales or more, but they identified as followers of Jesus, they lived beneath their means. And when people asked them, well, why do you follow Jesus now? You're successful. They said,
Mm.
well, it has nothing to do with that. He's the way, the truth, and the life. That message, that simple message would resonate. And so that's where the seed was planted in 2000, 2001. And in 2002, we had an opportunity to begin to outsource some work down to Ecuador through a missional operator that I knew back in the 90s. And then we also said, hey, we've got to be in Europe. 75% of hotels are independent in Europe. And what we offered was
Mm-hmm.
basically we help independent hotels compete against branded properties with a central reservation system. And so we hired what we would call a traditional missionary, but he had 2 years of real sales experience in Latin America before going to the field. His Spanish was so good, people thought he's from the south of Spain. He was marrying a Spaniard, so we knew, okay, if we train and put a bunch of money into him, he's not going to have the God call to go to China, which you can't fight against that.
True.
And he had work ethic. He had a track record of making disciples, very important for us when we identify missional operators. And he had grit. He had work ethic. He wanted the job.
Mm-hmm.
And so we raised a $100,000 European expansion fund. And we said, you got a year to get to break even on sales commissions. And in 6 months, he got to break even. He was sharing the gospel now across Europe because he got access to hotel owners and officers, because this is the most important product to operate their company, their hotel. And it was a wonderful experience. So that's where I come back to what I identify when we say we want to identify missional operators. They have all those components.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing we did on that venture was we sold the company 10 months later. And if we had had kingdom minded investors, what would we have done? We'd said, hey, let's cash flow this. We can put a guy in Dubai. We can put a guy in Istanbul. We can put a guy in Cairo. There's hotels everywhere. But that's when I had the aha moment and I said, okay, I'm a business missionary. What my calling is go identify, equip, and resource missional operators. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really where it took off, was late 2002. We sold the company mid 2003. And of course, we got to a million, what is it, million SaaS ARR, right? Recurring revenue, which is the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
But like most things, we had investor fatigue. we it was time to sell, but it was good.
Yeah.
It was a good experience.
Well, what a great way to be introduced into this emerging world of business as mission. So much of it, and you and I have talked about this. And for those of you who don't know, Dirk and his family, his wife, just moved about an hour away from me, so he's going to see way more of me than he wants to probably.
Exactly.
So we've had a
Looking
lot
forward
of
to it.
me too. We've had a
Yeah.
lot of in-depth conversations, and we have a lot of things in common. And one of those is, I think we both look at expats going to start businesses, not sideways, but we're both passionate about, as
hmm
you say, finding missional operators. And for me,
hmm
it's same concept. It's equipping and funding missional
hmm
entrepreneurs. Same basic
hmm
idea,
hmm
because
hmm
they know the language, they know the culture. It's so much more global, which to me is the secret. Um, what kept you from being that other guy? Because you've lived all over the world, so you've been an
hmm
expat, but
hmm
you've
hmm
always done it with a view
hmm
to
hmm
that wasn't the point, that was a means to an end. What kept you from that more traditional, I'm a missionary now with a briefcase as opposed to a
Yeah.
missionary with a Jesus video? How did you avoid that?
Yeah. Yeah, I just again when we made that decision to go into business after college, we had a really rich group. We had 200 people in crew wanting to change the world, and we had a core group of probably 15 to 20, and half of them went on full-time staff, half of them went to seminary, and half of us went into business. And for about 10 years, I felt like a second-class Christian. I felt like, well,
Mm.
I took the easy way out, right? And I grew in there and realized, no, it's whatever God's calling you to, be obedient and be faithful. And then I realized it's the most natural way that you can enter into somebody's life. I'm convinced now, I call it job creation missions. Hey,
Mm.
go out and create a job for somebody and you've got their ear. It happens in America, it'll happen anywhere in the world. You do something to help somebody secure a job and you're going to be able to share the gospel.
Yep.
Now, it's up to God to draw them to himself, but I think that's where it came, and just being able to outsource in 2002, be able to expand into Europe, and then sell this company. That's when I realized, okay, this is call it a platform, a strategy for advancing the gospel. And I would say at that time, I wasn't specifically focused on unreached. I was really just focused on people outside of the U.S. in general, because
Yeah.
in my view, they needed more resources.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's it. We'll come back to that. I know toward
yeah,
the end because of where you're headed, but lost people are lost people.
yeah,
You're not more lost if you're in an unreached people group,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
And your neighbor that's lost needs the gospel just as much. The strategic and missional issue, of course, comes down to there are virtually no Christian resources operating
yeah,
among the unreached. And that you,
yeah,
like me, we look at that and think that's just wrong, and we have to
yeah.
address that. God's calling us to address it. All right, so you guys sold the business. You say you
hmm
sold it a little early, but you
Yep.
sold it, and
Sold
then
under favorable terms. Yep.
then what?
Got enough money to be dangerous, and so I've been a feast or famine guy. So I feast or famine's how I lived since '99. I have not had I guess a salary from a third party company since 97. I've had to go start something, raise money, take a functional role, and get a salary.
Mm,
And so you get tight, and then you sell it, and you get liquidity. But when I got liquidity, I said it's time to go on mission. That was part of my self reliance to dependency story. And I think from '03, when we sold the company, to 2013, I would say I became very self reliant. I look back at the church. I would go to talk to individuals in my church. I got excited about, let's call it business as mission, since that's the term today. And I would talk to wealthy individuals who knew a lot about the Bible. And I'd go to them and say, hey, we can go down to Guatemala. We can go down to Ghana. We can start businesses, use profits to support ministry work. Doesn't that sound great? And it was met with indifference, like, that's
mm-hmm,
crazy talk.
mm-hmm.
And so what I did is I said, okay, there's something wrong with me. So I isolated from the church, to be honest. I took the wrong decision, but I thought you've got to go find your tribe, which I did. And so that's when I came, and I think you and I talked in 2005 to Dallas to hear Ken Eldred speak at a BAM conference, the
Mm-hmm.
first one I had ever found.
It was the very first one in the
Yep.
U.S.
Okay. And that's where I got connected to Integra Ventures, which is an organization I lead now as of 24. But I met them. They were raising capital for a couple of ventures in Eastern Europe where they were focused, and I co-invested with them in 2008 in a large medical endeavor in Sofia, Bulgaria. So that was the journey, and fast forward, ended up getting into a healthcare technology business that grew rapidly. We brought in venture capitalists in 2010. Thought, okay, I've hit the lottery. I'm going to sit back. We all thought, with what I had, I'd get anywhere north of $20 million. And so a friend of mine who had helped me get into BAM from Spain, he and I developed a $800,000 business development fund in late 2010. I remember having just a quick call with some of the Sovereigns guys as they were starting. Didn't do anything, but we were fairly self-reliant. We thought we'll just go change the world ourselves. And what we realized, we were both visionaries. Neither one was an operator. We were doomed from the beginning. Great friend of mine, shout out to Kern, and still a great friend. And he has had a big impact on my life. But we blew through that, did some great things. Hearts were good. And in late 2013, the VCs told us that we were a strikeout. They were walking away from the deal, $20 million plus of their investment. And we had 60 days to do something. We had a little bit of a bank loan. So in 60 days, we bought back the company for 20 cents on the dollar, and 15 close friends and family. And I was the only guy without a day job. They said, hey, you go run it. We had about 120 employees, bigger than anything I've ever run. And I'm not an operator. So I did it, and God showed how self-reliant I'd become. And in 2014, through about 2017, but pretty hard 2014, I went through a very deep, deep valley, and the Lord taught me what it meant to depend on Him. I depended on Him for my life, for the most part. I thought I was going to declare personal bankruptcy. I thought, what in the world did we buy back? No wonder the VCs walked away from it. And it was a 3-month time where, I lost all confidence. I would just say confidence as just a man and as a businessman. And by God's grace, we got certified. This was healthcare technology, and you had to get certified with the U.S. government. And by God's grace, we got certified in April of 2014. And as I tell people, it's like the Holy Spirit removed this pressure, and I could breathe again. Okay, but now I'm 48. What am I going to do with my life? And so that was 2014. And I would say 14 through 17, that was a journey to learn how to depend on the Lord, how to walk by the Spirit. And it was a very rich time. We ended up also going to a very missional church, relational healing church, versus a lot of churches. I grew up Bible churches, which, when I went through that time, most of the guys at that church slapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you're overreacting. Hey, you'll be okay. Hey, I'll pray for you. And I said, I need a little more than that.
Yeah.
So that's been the journey, brought us through 17. And in early 17 is when I went to a BAM conference in the Netherlands. And I met a man named Craig, who had started and led a kingdom impact fund called Transformational SME. And that's what set us on this next kind of journey to focus on unreached people groups.
Let me come back just to that last aspect of your story, because I hear this a lot, and of course I like you. I've been, whatever we want to call it, I've been in this business mission world for a long time, and you have too, and I've heard that so many times. I got confident, and and then I lost my confidence, and I don't believe that God breaks us. I don't think that's good theology at all. But there's no question that He does lead us through life in a way that teaches us one vital lesson. The just shall live by faith, and that's not just salvation, right? That is they don't just not just justified by faith. We're sanctified by faith. We walk by faith. We live by faith. Everything. And so I've heard that so many times. I've been through it myself more than once. Sadly, you think I get that lesson, but he's so faithful to bring us back again and again to say, you can't do this alone. You can't do it. I am the one who will do it. I will do it through you. That's huge. And then you said something else in the middle of that, Dirk, I want to point out for our listeners. It's not just a Western me and God thing. You needed other people around you. And
Yes.
this is the other countries you've been to, and I've seen as well.
Hmm.
They're much more community oriented
Yes. Yes.
than we are. We're like me and God,
Yeah.
we got this, and
Yeah.
so and that's part of it. But this beautiful thing, and you've said to me in many conversations, if
Hmm.
I've heard you say I'm not an operator
Hmm.
once, I've heard you
Hmm.
say it 100 times,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
learned that you needed
Hmm.
other gifted people
Hmm.
around you to pull this off. So I just
Hmm.
want to point that out. I mean, I know if I
Yeah.
heard you, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's such a vital truth
Yes.
that you've lived
Yes.
through. So okay, so now you're 2017. The
Yeah.
your way is the mist is lifting again,
Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
happens?
So I met Craig from this fund. There are about 18 people there at this conference. I got to hear him. I said, I've been looking for guys like you for a long time. And he heard my story, which I shared our time in Ecuador, these two companies going through this valley. He says, my goodness, we need people like you in North Africa. We need to start businesses amongst unreached people groups. And it's startup. And I thought, oh my goodness, North Africa. I've never thought about that. My wife's Colombian. We're Spanish speakers. We thought we'll go to Latin America. But after about a month of thinking about it, we said, Latin America's got a lot of issues, but they can reach themselves
Hmm.
spiritually.
Hmm.
If God can use us to reach people who have little to no access to the gospel, let's do it. So we set off down that course, and you get connected to mission agencies, and we tried a couple. Went down the road with one in 18, and we thought we'd go out with them to Morocco. They wanted us to start in Morocco, and we said okay, and did that. And about mid 19, we realized, hey, I'm not an operator. I'm getting on the older end. It's a young man's game in many ways. From a long-term operator, we have a big role to play in coaching, mentoring,
Hmm.
capital. And I called them back and said, hey, we can hit the ground running in Spain. We've got language, we've got culture, and we could go there and train some of these young operators coming to the field. And we're empty nesters at this point. We have two children. Sorry, we have a daughter and a son. Daughter who's 28 now, son's 25, and just became grandparents 7 months ago. But at that time, we had just become empty nesters, and we said, hey, we can go in for 3 months at a time and help stand these businesses up. And it was met with, wow, that sounds amazing, but we're not set up to do that. And I thought, wow, okay. So we said no to that agency. We tried another agency in 2020. And in the end, that didn't work out. And we said, you know what? We're back to square one. We've tried it. There's great local churches in Spain. They're small, but strong. We have language. We can just go out as missional expats, self-funded expats. So fast forward to 21, we had a final liquidity event at the healthcare technology firm that we had sold in 17, but it was a stock private company, and they had a liquidity event. So we got our last liquidity, and that gave us the funds to go out for 3 to 5 years, self-funded. And so that's what we did. We got our visas. We went out in July of 21 to Malaga. Not much of a business plan other than we want to identify, equip, and resource missional operators. And so we moved to Malaga, Spain, where there was a big, I guess you call it a missionary community. And what I found out, these are more the member care communities like Chiang Mai.
Hmm. Hmm.
Great, great people, great hearts, great friends, but night and day from what we were trying to do. So we were there for about 3.5 years, and we have just moved back a month ago to Greenville, South Carolina.
And from here, you will continue to serve the world. So those of you who haven't met Dirk in person, I mean, he's not going to sit in Greenville and clip coupons. He's going to be on a plane. He is going to be out there making things happen. Dirk, so in the middle of this, you already run into and started working a little bit with Integra Ventures, and as you and I have talked, I mean, when I started working in Kyrgyzstan back in the early '90s, it wasn't long. I want to say about '97, we started hearing about this organization called Integra Ventures that was really doing it right, in my opinion. So you come across and you're working with them a little bit. How did you end up becoming now? You're the executive director in the midst of all of your other things. You're the executive director. Tell us a little bit about Integra Ventures. What makes that organization powerful and unique?
So Integra started in 95 in Wheaton, Illinois. It was spun out of a traditional mission agency, International Teams, which is now called One Collective. And it was spun out as a fully focused BAM organization. It had its golden years, probably 95 to 2010. And it was focused on the former Soviet Union. So
Mm-hmm.
Eastern Europe, the stands, and they started early on doing business training. Then they did small loans, large loans, and moved to equity deals. And I met them in '05 and co-invested in '08, joined their board. And in 2010, they lost their director. He wasn't the right fit, incredible guy, but wasn't the right fit for a BAM. As I tell people, if you're going to run a BAM organization that has a fund or is making investments, you need to have started a business, sold a business, been in some kind of mergers and acquisition. You can't be really a traditional missionary that hasn't done something like that, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So we ran the organization. It was dormant for about 12 years as a voluntary board of directors. Several guys from the Lions Den Birmingham are on the board. And, we did some good things. We're strong in Albania, Bulgaria, and Romania. We had long-term investments there. And, I was on the board. I was still a major investment in the medical venture in Bulgaria. And fast forward, I was the one always saying, hey, we've had our golden years. It's time to shut down. There's a lot of great BAM organizations and BAM movements coming. We played our role. And when it's somebody's baby, they don't want to give up on it. And so we kept it going. And in 23, while we were in Spain, I was pushing on lots of doors here, trying to figure out my fit. And we were down in Ghana, West Africa, in June of 23. And again, I had been real involved in transformational SME, became investors in 2017. My wife just rolled off the board. She was on the board for 3 years, and I'm still on the investment committee for them. So that was really what we'd call our virtual community, but still trying to push on doors. And, came across a missional operator who was a medical professional and had a vision to start a medical school in northern Ghana and to train missional medical professionals who could go up into the Sahel region. I heard that and I said, I like it. Flying back, realized this is a nonprofit to raise the money for the medical school. Nobody cares if it's ABC or XYZ nonprofit in the US. We needed to get off being self-funded. And I said, well, goodness, I could take over Integra Ventures and raise the capital through there. That was really pretty much how that came about. Called my fellow board members. They said, let's do it. We wrote an MOU. And I took over January 1st, but with the vision to equip, to identify, equip, and resource missional operators like this individual in Ghana, and expand out of Eastern Europe into what we'd call more frontier markets like Albania, the Balkans, North Africa, West Africa, Middle East, Turkey. So that was the genesis in early 24, and it was really good. I think it fit me much better. I think there were a lot of folks in my network who said, Dirk, we'd love to get involved with you, but you've got this little LLC from South Carolina and Spain. We don't really know how to connect with you. And again, I've been a real, self-reliant kind of lone ranger in many ways, looking to collaborate, always want to collaborate, but obviously have a very clear calling. And it was last summer, I think, when the Lord made it real clear, hey, we need to bring the U.S. economy much closer to these frontier markets. And so we began at Integra looking at actually buying private companies in the U.S., this whole ETA movement, entrepreneurship through acquisition, about 3 or 4 partners here, angel investors. And we began to think about, hey, let's buy companies here that have products and technology that we could take to the frontier markets. We went down that road last summer, last fall, and, it's a pretty crowded space, a lot of people trying to do that. And then we began to think about, well, wait a minute, what if we brought talent, services from frontier markets into the U.S.? And that's what's led to what I'm going to launch here with a partner from Houston starting May 1st.
So your story, and this is about the third time, maybe fourth time I've heard you tell it, and it just it has so much energy about it. Part of it you just said, I have a clear call. And I think that's a very powerful thing. A lot of people I know are still wrestling with, what am I really supposed to be? And I know you may wrestle with, what am I going to do tomorrow? But you know who you are, and you know what God's called you to do, and you do that. And there's a confidence and a clarity that comes with that, which I think is very powerful. But as you're going through this, you're seeing, you're kind of growing up with the BAM movement, whatever
Yes.
again, whatever we want to
Yeah.
call it,
Yeah.
SME, B4T. I mean, it's got every alphabet soup out there.
Yeah.
But you're kind of growing up with it, which
Mm-hmm.
similar story to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you're seeing all this, and you just keep going through each door that God opens for you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you got to
Mm-hmm.
tell me, this is a setup question.
Yeah.
You got
Sure.
to tell me you're having a great time.
I really have. I would tell people, there was a long time where I was early on, 2004, when I got into this, I was trying to convince Christian businessmen
Mm.
to do this, and it was met with a lot of frustration. So I lived with a lot of frustration because I didn't understand why they weren't so excited. Well, I realized you've got to be living missionally. You've got to have surrendered a lot of your life. You're willing to change your lifestyle. So that was a lot of learning. It took about 10 years. Then I finally flipped it and say, hey, there's a joy to meeting these missional operators like Alex, who I hope to meet one day. But I've got three other guys like Alex in Africa, and it's just a joy to be around these guys.
Hmm.
And then it's also a joy to get the opportunity to share the good news with those who've never heard the gospel. So we met a lot of obviously Moroccan refugees there in Spain and got to know them, and they've never heard of Jesus. And, it's the Lord's work to bring them to himself, and they haven't come to Christ. But I just tell people, hey, there's no better way to live. So it's really the joy of finding these missional operators, and I would say many times they're a needle in the haystack. They're not just going to bubble up out of anywhere. I would assume Bob Bush and however he met Alex, there's a story there. But
Yeah. Yep.
that's what I share with Christian businessmen now. When they try to understand what I've done with my life, I just say it's been a journey of trying to meet these guys. And when I meet them, there's just no greater joy. And so that's how I've decided to live my life. It's not prescriptive. It's what the Lord's put on my heart to live out.
Well,
So,
and the reason I ask you about that is, you and I have both seen this, and we've shared, and you shared it again on the podcast.
yeah.
So much of the church globally, not just
Hmm.
the American church.
Hmm.
I mean, that's
Hmm.
probably the church we know best.
Yeah. Yeah.
People just don't think about missions, or if they do, they
Hmm.
think about traditional Hudson
Yeah.
Taylor golden era of mission stuff. That's fading rapidly. I know
Right. Right.
my missionary leader friends get
Yeah.
mad at
Yeah.
me when I say that,
Yeah.
but it's what I observe. It's not going
Yeah.
away. It will never end
Yeah.
entirely, I don't believe, but it is
Yeah.
fading, and more. I wouldn't even call it a new way. Business's mission is not
Hmm.
new. It goes all the way back to the Book of Acts.
Yes.
It's another way, and I think as I'm starting to hear these other ways and learn these other ways, and I just so want to get a I don't know
Yeah.
a ruler and pop some of these guys and say,
Sure. Sure.
listen to what God is saying. Maybe He's
Yeah.
calling you
Yeah.
to that. And so
Yeah.
I love that you're doing it. All right,
Yeah.
so let's come to you present day. You're still the executive director of uh,
Integra. Hmm.
Integra Ventures, and
Hmm.
we'll have
Hmm.
the website
Yeah.
in the show notes for everybody.
Yep. Great.
But you've been looking since the Lord led you back, you and Raquel from Spain. You've settled in Greenville, South
Hmm.
Carolina, just down the road from
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
Great town.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you're still doing the same thing. You're expanding
Yeah.
businesses. So
Yeah.
you're now into a new one. Literally, just I mean, it's being birthed almost as we
Sure.
speak. So
That's right.
tell us that a little bit of that journey and what it is
Well,
that you're going to be doing.
Well, Mike, give you a little credit. We came back here, Greenville, in over Christmas. We knew we were going to move back here in March or April from Spain. We didn't have real clarity what we were going to do, but I knew I needed to develop new cash flow streams for my family, but also for Integra. And we met in Hendersonville. I think what was it? Black Bear
Black Bear Coffee. That's right.
There you go. And I heard about your background, found out you were a staffing guru for 30 years and were consulting. And you told me about franchising. So I went down this road of looking at lots of franchises in staffing and lots of other areas, and came across one in outsourced talent and realized I'm a sales marketing biz dev. And then several of my friends were starting to look at bookkeeping, bringing outsourced bookkeeping to U.S. companies. We have one group in East Africa that is providing these bookkeepers. And I thought, my goodness, okay, I'm a CPA way back in time, license expired, but I was a CPA. I was an international controller for about 4 years in Ecuador. And just as the Lord would have it, he's calling me now to go and sell business services into U.S. companies. Small, medium-sized businesses, probably 10 to 250 employees, a million to 10 million in revenue. Very similar to the kinds of companies we would buy through an ETA strategy. And I have a partner in Houston who's been wanting to do this for a year. He has a really reputable fractional integrator EOS consulting company. And we've decided to partner together. So May 1st, I'm going to begin to sell services. But I do want to make it clear the only way I would do this if I knew there's a missional operator on the other side who has a vision to make disciples with those who have little to no access to the gospel, or has a vision to send those who are reached into harder areas, like from East Africa into the Sahel region, let's say, as an example. So we have one of those in East Africa, and we hope to develop, another 5 to 7 what we're calling service centers of excellence. I may have gotten that term from you and Bob and what you have down in Brazil, but we got to create demand first. But if we're able to stand up more service centers of excellence based on outsourced services, bookkeeping, digital marketing, what have you, we'll use Integra Ventures. That'll meet Integra Ventures' vision, and we'll raise capital through Integra, probably through donor advised funds, makes the most sense, and stand those service centers of excellence up. But for right now, in 2025, we need to go create demand. We need to make sales.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to set out on May 1st. I'm real excited, but I'm excited because it keeps me in the game. It keeps me close to missional operators in the field who have a vision, but they need demand. They need U.S. clients to be able to drive their work wherever God's called them to.
So it's a beautiful equation, right? You've got the need here, and need, and not just in the U.S. I mean, Western Europe, other places.
Yeah.
You got the need, and then you've got all these talented and qualified resources in other places like East Africa, Central Asia. I mean, they exist.
Latin America.
You're putting them together. What is the value proposition for a client for you? I mean, obviously there's a they're doing good. They're helping support people in this other country, all of that. But a business value proposition. How do you present it?
Yeah, we're coming under the umbrella of operational efficiency, and our real pitch is, hey, let's free up resources for you to put toward your most strategic initiatives, sales, customer retention. So for providing a high level of quality and obviously a cost-effective solution for bookkeeping, and also bringing a service and not, depending on who's doing that for them currently, it's another person they don't have to manage, and it could be another person they can move into those more revenue-producing activities. So that's the value proposition. Yep. It's a really reallocating resources to your most important areas in your business to grow your business.
So in some ways, very similar to outsourcing technology, development, that sort of thing. Let me ask you a question that somebody's going to ask this, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it.
Yeah, you bet.
What about the matter of security and compliance? And they're giving their books. I mean, people guard their books more than they guard their source code. Yeah. They're giving that over. They're giving access to somebody in another country. Yeah. It's me, but make me feel comfortable with that equation.
So we're starting pretty much at QuickBooks Online. So they'll be logging only into the servers where that company's QuickBooks Online is hosted. And so they're logging into their secure facility. I will be their point person, and myself or some other CPAs or accountants in our network will provide the reviews and will be the point of contact for the client. So that's the security we have. We also will provide read-only access in terms of bank statements and credit cards to our developers in other countries. So we think it's a true and tried model in terms of outsourcing. As you and I both know, there's thousands of companies providing outsourced talent.
Absolutely.
We're providing services which we think are fundamentally different.
I just see this as a game changer, Dirk, when I think about all of the money. I just completed my taxes this week. Uh,
Yeah.
Today is April 17th, so 2 days after tax day, and
Uh-huh.
I have a local accountant who does all my work, and I know how
Yeah.
much time. She's very affordable and all of that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just know how much, and I'm a small business guy, and I
Yeah.
think about how much time and effort I had to put into that I could have
Exactly.
used for other things. My wife is my business partner. She could have put it into other things.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked the question about security, because I
Yes.
know it's the same principle as outsourcing medical
Yes.
transcription.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
and so there's got to
Exactly.
be, and this is what you answered, there are controls in place
Yes.
along the way to make sure that data is still secure.
Yes.
I think this is going to be phenomenal. I do know
Yeah.
with your energy, obviously, if God's in it, and you are a
Mm-hmm.
natural
Mm-hmm.
business development guy. That's just
Mm-hmm.
how He's
Mm-hmm.
wired you. Even your gospel witness, flows from the way He's made you,
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to speak your mind
Yeah.
in a clear way and a compassionate way. You
Mm-hmm.
don't run over
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
I see this as being something that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But let me ask you one other question. Two
Yeah.
questions really.
Uh-huh.
One is okay, and what else? Because I know you're not
Yeah.
going to just do this 50, 60 hours a week. You may for a while,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're always and what else kind of guy. So what else are you going to be working on, do you think?
Yeah, I would say, like anything, focus, focus, focus right now. That's, for a guy like me, that's hard. So I love the missional operator. So, last fall got really connected to Larry and Bob over IBEC Ventures and you. So I've just signed up to be a coach. I want to collaborate, and so I want to be a coach. But also with this, once we get the demand going, being again, everything's online, and I can do a lot of this remote. I see myself still traveling. In fact, I'm heading to Albania in about 2 weeks to co-lead an executive MBA program with Trinity Western University out of Vancouver.
Excellent.
And for 2 weeks, got a strong network there. So yeah, I hope to continue to be very involved. That was actually part of why I said no to a lot of these franchises, which would have been very focused on upstate South Carolina. Could have been very lucrative financially, but I realized, Lord, I want to stay in the game and I want to stay very close to these missional operators and
Hmm.
frontier markets.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, we'll,
I,
we'll we'll see where it all goes.
I love it. Last
Yeah,
question
yeah,
for you. So
yeah.
looking at your journey,
Hmm.
you've been all over the world. You've
Yeah.
got this passion for missional entrepreneurs, missional operators, and
Uh-huh.
equipping them to fulfill their calling. All of
Hmm.
these things are beautiful. And then you look back, you come to Greenville, you're in the buckle of the Bible Belt, and
Exactly.
we're both facing the same thing: is
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
around and people just don't get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
In addition
yeah,
to the fact that it drives us both crazy,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
what do you say to the Christian and
yeah.
true Christians in the U.S., particularly our
Hmm.
little part of
Hmm.
it in the Southeast?
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
do you say to
Yeah.
them to encourage them to get in the game? How do you address that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I would say go find, go talk to people like you and me and many others, Bob Bush at IBEC, and be careful who you talk to, but go ask them what are some missional groups that I could get involved in with my time. One of them I know, I'm on the investment committee, is Transformational SME, and they have a minimum investment of 5,000, depending on where you're at. Go make that $5,000 investment, or get three or five friends and do 1,000 each, and I call it an entry fee or a membership fee.
Yeah.
If you want to get in the game, you got to put some money. You and I both know when you don't put, skin in the game, how committed are you? Get involved, and they'll put you involved on a due diligence team. They'll let you travel out with some of their senior guys to some portfolio companies. And I would say for 6 months, get involved and see where it leads you.
I love
And
it.
I would add one more thing to that, Mike. Stay away from some of the what I would call the investor BAM events, which are wonderful, and I think those are great once you're in BAM. and you're going down the road, because those could lead to, um, stay where you are, play it safe, just becoming an investor, which is needed. But if you're really saying, Lord, I'm sensing that you want me to get more involved with my time and talents and skills, I would start in the order I just shared.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah,
I think I
yeah.
agree with you wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
I've taken a lot of people overseas to teach business, and that's
Yeah,
been helpful. But if they didn't invest, it wasn't the whole package.
yeah,
I've met a
yeah.
lot of people who have invested, like you're talking about, through some of these
Uh-huh.
investment groups, but
Yep.
their time and talent is not doesn't go with
Hmm.
it. So it's
Hmm.
not the whole package. What
Yeah,
you're describing is
yeah.
a small way,
Hmm.
a few
Hmm.
steps to get forward,
Hmm.
but it's all
Hmm.
of you,
Yeah,
right? You're
yeah.
engaged with your heart, with your mind, with your wallet, with your knowledge. All of you is
Hmm.
engaged
Hmm.
in a little way, and
Hmm.
and you know as well as I do that that little way doesn't stay little.
Amen.
God just
Yeah,
continues to
yeah,
expand the tent,
yeah,
expand your territory, and that's beautiful.
yeah.
Dirk, thanks so much, man. It's great to see
Thank
you.
you.
We've been trying to do this now ever since we first met.
Yep.
And what you
Love
guys
it.
don't know, Dirk and I have run in the same circles for
Yep.
30 years almost,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
we've never met until just a few
Yep.
months ago, which is
That's
so
right.
weird. I would fly in and they say, "Yeah,
Yep.
Dirk Cameron just left," or he would fly in and they say, "Oh, Mike Baer just left,"
Yep.
and
Exactly.
so we connected and we hit it
Yeah.
off. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're just down the road, man. We're going to
Yeah.
have some good times
Look,
together and do some
looking
good
forward to
stuff
looking
together.
forward to the fellowship. Looking
Me,
forward to it big
me
time.
too. All right, brother.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for the time, guys. This is the Business and Mission podcast, and also the BAM channel on YouTube. If you've enjoyed and been blessed by what you've heard, please give us a rating. If you haven't subscribed either on YouTube or on the podcast, do so please, so you don't miss any of the new information coming out. And tell a friend about us. That's the main thing. We
Yeah.
want other
Yeah.
people to know this is not about me and Dirk.
Hmm.
This is about what God is doing in the world in the 21st century. It's not new, but it is fresh,
Yeah.
and you may find a place in that. So please do so and just stay connected with us. We appreciate it. Dirk, so good to
Thank you.
have you, man. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Mike.